Hi, I am really happy to be here. Welcome to the Writer Center. I am Amy Freeman. I am the entire development department. Was that for me or was that for development? Was that for me? I'm going to say it's for me. Okay. So, briefly stated, the Writer Center is a literary arts nonprofit. We support writers and everyone who wants to write. We have up to 300 creative writing workshops a year. We have dozens of events that are free and open to the public like this, some of which also have incredible food and drink. You can find out about us. This is outdated, but a new one drops soon through our magazine, which is published 3 times a year and has genius interviews from people like, what? Oh, me. No, but with lots of local authors. We also publish Poet Lore, the oldest poetry journal in the country. Wow! Thank you. We have been continuously publishing for 139 years. Wow. 4 years. We pay for pieces, $50 a piece, so submit.
$50 for poets?
What?
Free to submit.
Oh my God.
And it's free to submit, yeah.
Oh,
That's
Thank you. You're my biggest fan. I'm your biggest fan. Okay, so we are here to celebrate this incredible book, and I have to give up the mic, which is my least favorite thing to do. So without talking about anything else, I'm going to introduce my favorite person who I never see, the incredible, inimitable Hannah Grieco.
All right.
Hey y'all, thanks for being here. This move, am I allowed to touch it? All right. Thank you for being here. There are so many people in this audience that I am so grateful to have you here. And this book is very, very special to me. And so I am just going to read my introduction because I think that the introduction tells you everything you need to know about it. And then we will have our wonderful readers tonight. Unfortunately, Amber Sparks is ill and cannot be here tonight. I know, we're all like, oh, so we're so sad. And her piece is really good. But I'm hoping that we can get her into another reading in the area at a bookstore in Old Town in early 2024. So keep your eyes on our social media, different platforms, and we'll let you know. So welcome to Already Gone. Sorry, I gotta break the spine here.
satisfying.
There's something unexpected and magical about editing an anthology. The gathering of written work from a variety of writers pieced together into something bigger, something more. We could search for the perfect metaphor, perhaps different shades of paint that add to the texture and nuance of a portrait. Or we could liken it to the planting of seeds in a garden that will eventually yield an entire summer's worth of fruit. Editing an anthology is a tremendous effort, just like painting or gardening, and it also involves a similar moment of transformation. The instant those layers of color reveal cheekbones and a nose on the canvas. A face appears out of murky swirls. Or the first strawberry, red on the vine, an explosion of flavor born in an empty plot. As you read and edit and sort and imagine, all of a sudden it hits you what you're witnessing. Story after exceptional story begin to fuse together into something entirely new. Magic. For this anthology, I asked writers to send us their prose about running away, and the stories they sent. Mothers flew, literally and figuratively, from their families. Wives sped down highways. Children turned into wild beasts and fled their home. A man spent his life savings, first on the stars, and then on a spaceship to reach them. Narratives of secret marriages, of loss, of death, of the afterlife as an escape. An essay about the city streets at night. Stories about college and freedom, about setting down the mantle of hero, about painting even, layer upon layer, but this time to create a barrier, to escape by constructing new walls. Maybe we all want to run away. Maybe there's a voice inside each of us that resists being rooted, that speaks to generations past when we wandered for food and chased the sun to stay warm. Or maybe this world is simply too heavy these days, weighing us down, flattening us until we finally say, no more. And if we can't release the burden in real life, perhaps the page is where we turn, to examine what we hold, to imagine what it means to let go. If we fly on the page, maybe we can fly off the page as well. There is always escape in reading, but here, and already gone, we go much, much further. Here we break the rules and spit in the eye of convention. Here we fill the tank, hit the gas, and fly. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm not going to play MC tonight because the readers, their work speaks for itself. So I'm just going to ask our readers to come up one after another and read their beautiful work. Some of them will read excerpts because they have much longer work, and some of them will not. But either way, please stay around after because we are all very excited to sign your books as well. All right? So Matt, you are up first.
Hello. Thank you so much, Hannah, for including me in this anthology. I'm so excited. I've been excited for this night for like 4 months, I think, when I knew that there was a possibility of a reading. So this story that I wrote is called Phoenix Pepper. I read it to my parents as practice over Thanksgiving break. And they asked me, why were there so many pepper references? And the reason is because the main character is named Phoenix Pepper. I assumed that they forgot that. So they were a little confused. And Phoenix is also spelled F-E-N-I-X, which comes up at one point. So the story's called Phoenix Pepper. It's pretty short. I taught my brother Phoenix to take his fears and worries and scream them in a mason jar. So when he shut the lid, they had to fight until all that remained was a calming bush of air inside a glass. It didn't matter if you screamed your hate and anger or read Shakespeare's plays. When you went back to open that jar, it was the same quiet sound inside. When the state came to pick us up, Phoenix chose to run. He said they couldn't take us from our daddy even though they could. They could do anything. All they had to do was grab us by the wrist and shove us in the back of their slick back car. We could scream so our angry words traveled in the back seat with us on our way to some big yellow room with big yellow bunks and thin yellow sheets for all the others who were taken from their daddies and mommies to hide beneath when they told us in the dark to shut our eyes. Not that day in June. Not that day when the car pulled up and we were busy shouting the things we wanted to yell at the world inside our mason jars. Not when the men in sunglasses and big black suits asked, "Are you the Pepper Boys?" Yeah, we were the Pepper Boys. Boys who'd heard the jokes already, so come on, throw one at us. See how they make us feel. Your daddy a doctor or something? Haha. Yo jalapeno. Or tell us our favorite. Did Peter Piper pick the peck of you? Phoenix Pepper, man. Named Phoenix because our mother didn't know how to spell Phoenix. Named Phoenix for the city, not the bird. Phoenix because our names had to have an X somewhere. Xavier and Knox, Alexander and Dax. We were the X kids, the former kids who had to grow up too fast. When Phoenix took off running, the men followed, but not for long. He ran faster than any man in a suit could ever dream. When he reached the woods, he called, "I'm sorry, Dax, I'm sorry, Knox." And his voice was so scared and thin it didn't sound like words until we asked ourselves in the back of that slick back car what he might have said. "Sorry," we agreed. Wish we could have told him, "It's okay." Wish we could have yelled, "Just keep running, Phoenix." Wish we could have seen ourselves in those men's sunglasses, our skinny frames and dirty mouths and said, "You're going to have to catch us too." We told ourselves a lie that they could do anything. We told ourselves no matter how far we ran, they'd catch up to us someday. We told ourselves those men would always win. But not Phoenix. Only Phoenix saw himself staring back in those men's sunglasses and noticed how wide the world really was. Maybe he saw the woods back there and a way out. Maybe it was all right there in those shiny black frames we were too scared to face ourselves. We never looked. We told ourselves no good could come of raising our heads, just stare at the ground and say, yes, sir. I remember when Phoenix held the mason jar to his ear. He said he heard his thoughts even louder than before. All his fears, all his worries, they started barking at him, he said. Not that quiet bush, not that calming sound we aimed for, not the peace we thought sounded like lights out, not the shh, go to bed now, not the please don't say another word, not did anyone ask you to speak, Mr. Pepperboy? He heard run, he heard go, and when he heard it, he listened. His ear pressed so tight to the lip of his jar, the voice inside was louder than anyone's who told him to stop.
I don't want to go now.
Say your name. Tell us who you are.
Okay, I am DeMisty, oh my gosh, I am DeMisty D. Bellinger. And I think anytime someone I know, like Hannah, asks for work, I think they're only accepting it because they know me. So I'm not very proud of my work. But, so this story, I think I'm building a story and I'm building a book in stories. And this is about, it's kind of a climate change novel. And it's called Escape. So I'm gonna break this on too. This is fine to do it. And then, oh my gosh, look, I broke it, see? Too short for my I kind of thought about my daughter when I wrote this because, well, one of them, I have twins. One seemed like as soon as she came out, she was ready to go. So, Escape. Monisha was famous for not crawling. At 10 years old, she read all of Shakespeare's sonnets and his comedies, writing a couple of papers and publishing them in 2 separate peer-reviewed journals with minimum edits. Her counterparts in the public education and job centers took quickly to a trade that they could fulfill until the ultra-rich figured out a way to automate those jobs too. But Monisha excelled in calculus, physics, English, and biochemistry. It was very likely that she would leave. Eyes were already on her, and conversations were already happening. Her parents stared at her when they thought she wasn't noticing. She noticed. Last week, she told her parents that she will be a woman. It isn't yet practical, she said, but it's how I feel inside. Her parents didn't question her, didn't discourage her from her choice, or encourage her to, at the very least, go with non-binary until she was old enough to know for sure, because they knew Monisha was wise enough to know by now. She walked at 8 months, never crawled. Tatum was overly proud of their daughter. He was sure her wit and studiousness was products of a formula he had concocted for her before she could eat solid food. He and his wife grew up at the American dream, as the American dream drew its last breaths. But Tatum was sure it was not dead quite yet. Even now, there was a chance for social and economic mobility. Yet, it didn't matter if you went to college or grad school, those chances gave you a life that was good enough. But no one moved from the middle class to the ultra-rich unless they had real talents. Monisha, Tatum was certain, had real talents. Deesha's heart would beat when she catch herself wishing that Monisha would leave already. Something about the child made her apprehensive. Something about her daughter made Deesha realize that Tatum was lacking. She looked at Monisha and saw her husband, saw an obtuse, helpless hope in spite of the reality laid out before them. If Monisha did get to leave, did get to go to an actual school and study actual academics, to what end would it be? It'd be for the ultra-rich to save the lives of those who destroy the middle and working classes' lives. Deesha knew the very wealthy had clear skies and clean air uninhibited by UV protective shields. Deesha knew that the ultra-rich could actually go outside. When Deesha was Monisha's age, she used to sit outside her mother's house on the stoop, watching the other girls play jump rope and waiting her turn. She closed her eyes and felt the summer sun warming her face, turning her already brown skin browner with just a tinge of red as deep as burgundy. a summer glow. She could hear the cicada and grasshopper songs along with the piercing cry of the blue jays and rude caws of the crows that dominated her neighborhood. She could remember the maple leaves shading her haphazardly, letting spots of sun raise through, and lone leaves shaking on their own, as if they were moved to dance. Leaves. Outside now, no more lawns, and all the trees were dwarfed and utilitarian. Outside, no more simplicity of sitting in the sun, lest you wanted to get basal cell or squamous cell carcinoma or melanoma or worse, first-degree burns. Leaves. Again, Deesha's heart rate sped up, the word delicious in her mind, but not for Manisha. It was delicious to her. Get up and go, Deesha, she thought. But then what? And to where? Tatum, oblivious to all around him and so full of helpless hope, picks Manisha up in his arms and spins with her. The child giggles. They are in their living room of their apartment pod, well taken care of. They have enough. And Deesha, too aware of what is happening, sits on a sofa and smiles blankly at the two of them. When Tatum sets Manisha back down on her feet, the girl looks at her mother. Deesha's breath catches somewhere in her esophagus with fear of being found out, but she sees it in Manisha's eyes too. Manisha, who famously never crawled, the desire of escape to somewhere else. Thank you.
So I made 2 errors tonight. First is that while I practiced, I forgot to time myself. So I'm going to set this. The second is that I got the memo, did not get the memo, that everyone was supposed to look cute.
Sweater dress, Michael.
Yes.
Sure. I'll go with that. But never be the, what is it? Most underdressed person. So thanks, everyone. All right, I'm Michael Tager. Hi. And I wrote this story, and it's very good, and I hope you like it. And if you don't, I actually don't care. So that's good, too. All right. Can people hear me in the back? Mick?
Yes, we can hear you.
Mick, can you hear this? Okay. I might do both. No, I'll use the mic. Okay. So this story is called Leave Me in the Sun. I will read as much of it as I can, but I will not read it all. And it is for Mandy, who loved the moon. In Arizona, we decided to leave the I-70 and head south. The roof was down, the sun was high, and I knew I wouldn't get this close to the border for a long time, maybe ever. And for whatever reason, I needed to. Viv didn't care and said so long as we stopped off and got something to drink. Not high alcohol beer, we didn't want to get drunk, but something cool that reminded us we weren't ready to die. Viv pulled off the first exit we saw and vaguely followed signs that promised civilization. I watched the sky. Vultures circling in the distance, a hawk floating on air currents, looking for all the world like a lazy kid on a boogie board drifting in the Atlantic. Wouldn't it be nice to be a bird? I don't know, what kind of gas mileage do they get? 1,000 miles to the gallon, I said without pause. Sounds like a good deal, she said. Viv didn't always pay attention. That was okay. I didn't really need her to validate me. Sometimes I just wanted to say words and have them evaporate. Eventually we came upon a small town, Jackson's Corner, and slowed down. A lot of the houses had white picket fences and satellite dishes. All the cars were better than ours, too. It looked like it was just the one street, but I didn't understand Arizona, and I couldn't judge anything without tall buildings. I was too much of the city. We skidded to a stop outside a little Adobe hut-looking store that advertised Budweiser in big red letters. What does it look like, Teddy? I scratched my nose and winced. Was I starting to burn? Viv wore a hat to hide her skin. I wish I'd worn a hat. I wondered if beer would make things worse instead of better. It usually did. It looks delightful. It was cool inside and cramped. Beers stacked to the ceiling, mostly name brands, nothing I would normally drink. But it's good to not be so choosy and snobby sometimes. There were a couple customers, big white men with beer guts and massive biceps. One of them had a little kid following him, freckled, and clutching a stuffed bunny. The teller was white too, and he gave Viv a long look. I could see his brain churning, wondering what a Chinese girl was doing out here. Joke was on him though. Viv was born in Jersey, just like her parents. Her uncle had been a city councilman. We grabbed a case of Budweiser and a case of Heineken and a bunch of jerky and some potato chips. I got a couple of bottles of water, and for some reason, we decided that we needed some whiskey. Who we thought was going to drink all of this was beyond me. But we were almost 40, and that was reason enough. Thank you. While we waited in line, one of the men sidled up to Viv and said hello. He was handsome, with round cheeks and just the right amount of stubble. Viv looked him up and down and grinned. "You just passing through?" he asked. "That's right. You shouldn't. There's a dance out at Mickey's. Got a band and everything. It'll be a hoot." He licked his lips and leaned in a little, testing the waters. When Viv took a step back, he took a step back too. That's always nice to see. I like dances and I like hoots, but we have someplace to be. The man glanced at me and nodded, tipping his trucker hat. It said Dallas on it. Not very exciting, but it reminded me of my own needs, so I glanced around, and lo and behold, right by the door was a bunch of hats. Hot damn. I walked on over while Viv and the man flirted their asses off. If this was 10, 15 minutes ago, Viv probably could have been convinced. Just checking the time. She'd been that sort. She was from Jersey. I came back to the line just as the teller was ringing everything up. The handsome man was nowhere to be seen. "Where did your friend go?" I asked Viv. I tossed the hat on the counter. It was camo and had a deer on it. I didn't like hunting, but any port in the storm. And this. Viv shrugged and handed the cashier her credit card. Pack of cigarettes, too. What kind? His voice was raspy and soft, like a supervillain. It really doesn't matter. She turned to me. The friend had to go. He gave me his number. That was cute. The teller threw a pack of Camels and matches into the bag with the jerky and the chips, and we were off. I put the hat on and admired myself in the mirror. I cracked open one of the buds and took a sip, grimaced, and took a gulp. "You going to call him?" "Hell no," she said. "His name is Gerald." I can't sleep with a Gerald. I thought it was a pretty fair point. He seemed nice. He was nice. It's not his fault that's his name, but here we are. And there he is, named Gerald. "Light me one of those cigarettes, would you?" I said sure and hid from the wind as she accelerated. The matches kept on going out and I cursed. But eventually I got one going for her and then another for me. It tasted disgusting. But I kept smoking and I kept on drinking until we got back to the highway. When it was gone, I cracked open another. It felt right in the sun. Eventually night came and the moon rose like a big white space rock. It was enormous, hanging so low its belly seemed to drag on the mountains in the distance. I was on my 8th beer. Viv was on her 3rd. I didn't feel drunk, but I probably was, even though I'd also gone through 3 bottles of water. God, I had to go. But neither of us felt like stopping, especially with the moon looking like that. I pointed at her and said to Viv, "You ever think about the moon?" She didn't answer. I wish I'd worn a tank top. "Don't you have one in your bag? Go get it." I look terrible in tank tops, I said. "Who do you have to impress out here?" She laughed and asked for another beer. "Her," I said, pointing at the moon. "I feel like it's a trap, and she'll judge me if I wear something unflattering." Viv chewed her lip and took her eyes off the road long enough to drink it all in. I could see the moon in her right iris. I couldn't see her left, but I suspected the moon was there too.
Viv seemed to change, like her soul started to escape through her nostrils, like the heavy magnetic tension that was our destination started to evaporate. At the end of this drive was Pittsburgh and her new job, and then Baltimore and my spouse and my kids. She didn't really want the job. I wanted the family, but I didn't want them right now, and I didn't want them all the time. Finally, Viv snorted and said, "Sweetie, you're a weird one, you know that, right?" I did know that. So I held up my beer, and we cheersed, and I kept on watching the moon until I fell asleep. And when I woke, Viv was on the side of the road, peeing in the starlight, and I said, "That sounds like a really, really good idea." So I joined her, and we just pissed into the desert like some old-timey folks. Skip it a little. It was snowing in Baltimore. I couldn't believe it. Right now I was cold because we were in the desert, and night sand retains no heat or memory, but I remembered the sweat. And my burned skin certainly remembered the sun. Sometimes I wish I could just be left at the beach to melt. When things are left out in the sun, they return to their essence. They rot, or they are eaten, they are melted, or they are turned to vapor. I'd make good vapor. I was sure of it. Thank you.
Hello. So Hannah, you wanted to use my book. You didn't say you were going to break the spine, though.
Sorry.
I didn't break it.
Didn't you grab that book off the...
I did, but I figured it was a contributor's copy. I didn't. The lesson is I'm never letting Hannah borrow a book.
Don't break my soul.
My name is Zach Powers. I'm excited to be here. I work here at the Writer Center. My office is over there. I'm the artistic director here, so it's a change of something to be here as a reader as opposed to a host or, I mean, I did set up some stuff, so I did my job normally, but thank you all for being here at the Writer Center. A great nonprofit you should all support. Okay. I'm going to read about half of my story's surface treatments. I could probably finish it all in the allotted time, but that would not entice you to buy the book. So, yeah. I'm also in charge of marketing at the Writer Center. All right, this is a story called Surface Treatments. It took less than a month for the coats of paint to completely cover the electrical outlet in the kitchen. So much for coffee, so much for toast. The nearest outlet was in the dining room. The longest extension cord was only 6 feet. We suggested that our parents buy a longer one, maybe one that wasn't orange and meant for outdoors, maybe one that wasn't caked with saffron dirt. But we were children, like most children. Even the wisest things we said went ignored. This was when Dad sometimes didn't work. This was when Mom sometimes didn't drink. When Dad did work, it was part-time painting houses. We would ride to Waffle House where they had toast, Dad pointing out decorative shutters on split-level ranch styles. That's surfing, he would say, of a pair painted blue. He had painted those houses. He had painted those and many shutters besides. The names never quite matched the colors. Dignified, intuitive, jovial, reticence. Some were named with words we'd never heard of. Loggia, for example, which sounded like a word we would later learn, but we would learn had no relation. They let our dad keep the extra paint, they being his bosses who hired him because he looked like the other men they hired, skinned somewhere between quinoa and hop sack. We were all blonde like Mom, at least like Mom before she went early gray. Passive. Neither Mom nor Dad had emigrated farther away than Richland, South Carolina. When Dad had a day off from painting, he painted the kitchen walls. The first few times, we thought it normal. We had friends at school who told us of the new colors their rooms had taken. Their colors were banal, pink, yellow, blue, green. We asked for specificity. They never knew what we meant. That first month, Dad repainted the kitchen 5 times, and he painted it 10 the next month. In all the months that came after, he added 15 fresh coats on average. On days Mom didn't drink, she would help Dad paint. On days she did, she would yell at Dad for always painting. Sometimes she'd leave the house and come home hours later with her own half-empty containers, handles of whiskey with names as diverse as Dad's colors, Old Crow, Old Granddad, Kentucky Gentleman, Wild Turkey, Early Times. We should say Mom never yelled at us. With us, she mostly hugged and cried, always at once. First, it was the power outlets, and then the layers of paint thickened to the width of the trim, the crown molding, the light switches. Mom switched to candles, a midwinter coat of Bolero, red like dried blood, stuck the faucet in the off position. After that, the bathroom sink provided our drinking water. We had to use the dishwasher for even the filthiest pots, but that was not long a worry. The stove's back console disappeared under a paint a few weeks after the faucet. Dad spent less time painting at work and more time painting at home. Mom opted for vodka for economical reasons, she explained. Taka, her vodka of choice. You don't have Taka? It was a New Orleans thing. It's Raka. I've drunk a lot of it. When she left the bathroom with a glass in hand, it was never clear whether it was water or not. By Christmas, a coat of festive Kilkenny overlapped the lip of the counter. Mom and Dad had saved up enough to buy us each a Ninja Turtle. The turtles shared the names of famous painters, but we called them instead by the colors of their masks. Soon the paint of the walls swelled beyond the kitchen cabinets, layering over them like sediment, sealing away their contents to await fossilization. Lost forever inside were colanders and mugs and whisks and forks and sponges and a drawer full of uncategorized junk. Mom stopped entering the kitchen altogether. Dad left only to bathe and sleep and work. The doorway shrank, growing more child-sized with every coat of paint. Dad had to enter sideways, ducking his head. Sometimes he added 2 coats a day. The fridge door drowned beneath a wash of ebb tide. The oven melted into red-orange ember glow. Now it resembled less a kitchen and more a hall, though it led nowhere. That's when the gallon buckets could no longer fit through the door. Dad had to stretch his arm back through the gap just to dip the brush bristles in the paint. He put down old gray newspapers to protect the threshold from dribbles. He never crossed the threshold himself. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Deesha Philyaw, and I want to thank Hannah for this amazing collection and for inviting me to contribute to it. Also thanks to Rose and to Jimmy and everybody at the Writer Center, and to all my fellow contributors. It's an honor to be in this journal, this anthology with you. I've had some sangria. But unlike Michael, I got the sweater dress memo, so.
But you did.
My story is titled Mother's Day, and as I was sharing with Hannah, I got the inspiration for it before I was invited to contribute. I was in Pittsburgh. I lived in Pittsburgh for 25 years, which is half my life. And in the summer of 2021, I decided I couldn't take another full Pittsburgh winter. So I needed something to look forward to. So I rented a house in Miami Springs for a month, for February of last year. And it was great. It was a little neighborhood I could walk. It was a Peruvian restaurant. I would go and have lunch and sit outside, and it was 90 degrees. And one day I was eating lunch and someone texted me and said, "There's a blizzard in Pittsburgh." And I was like, and they were like, "Well, aren't your children there?" And I'm like, "My children are adults, and it's 90 degrees, and I'm sitting outside eating Peruvian food." And so when Hannah invited me to contribute to an anthology about leaving, I knew exactly what I wanted to write. Mother's Day. I left as my kids slept, but I stuck a note on the refrigerator because I didn't want them to think I had left like their daddy left when Josiah, my youngest, was still in diapers without no explanation, only to be heard from again when he felt like it, which was about every other year. Just up and left and started another family across town, a wife and 2 kids. Every December since Josiah was born, I told myself that winter would be my last in the ashy town I was born and raised in, and where I raised my kids. It's gray there, even in spring. I kept saying, I'm gonna move someplace with colors all year round. Yellow, orange, and red fall leaves, bright yellow tulips, grass so green it looks fake, and a clean blue ocean that I can drive to in a heartbeat. A place with all the colors, like the boxes of 64 Crayolas my mama used to get us for Christmas, the kind with the sharpener built into the box. I don't think I ever sharpened a crayon once, but I like knowing I could if I wanted to. That's how I felt about living in my hometown. I'm not the type to rip and run in the streets all the time the way my best friend Misty does. But when I do choose to be out and about, I want sunshine on my face and on my scalp and on my bare shoulders and in between my toes. And more than that, I don't want to have to take care of anybody other than my damn self, not even houseplants. It took me a week to write that goodbye note to my kids. What to say? I couldn't tell them that I'd left to chase colors and sunshine and freedom, that I was sick of the familiar, that their father isn't the only one who gets to start over, that I love them but don't want to be around them all the time. How do you tell your kids that for you, active motherhood was a season, that you're ready to move on? Sounds like a breakup. Can you break up with your kids? Can you, it's not you, it's me, your kids? Do you tell them how you never had a chance to figure out who you are other than somebody's mama, somebody's daughter, and somebody's discarded wife? How you never had a chance until now? I don't expect my kids to understand and be happy for me. They have every right to be upset with me, and I had every right to leave. For 18 years, I dreamed about leaving. As I rocked and nursed Josiah to sleep, I would hum goodbye songs. Midnight Train to Georgia, Hit the Road, Jack, Urge for Going. Misty laughed at me, but I like that white lady, Joni Mitchell, her songs anyway. Hearing all those gotta go tunes is probably why Josiah is such a restless chap, as my mama used to call him when he got to running all over her house and standing up, bouncing at the dinner table like he had ants in his pants. The worst punishment I could give him was to make him stay in the house, even though there really wasn't much to do in that town, no way. Misty says she's going to die there. Why would you even be thinking about that in your 40s? She say other places are nice. She ain't been nowhere but Disney World, Atlanta, New York City, and on the Caribbean cruise ships, but home is home, and that's where she's going to breathe her last. Not me. I left that bitch. The town, not Misty. And I didn't take my kids with me, but they grown. In Miami, I have a job, even though I don't need one. Part-time at a liquor store, walking distance from my house. I got the job on a lark a few months after I got here. I was in the store to pick up my usual order: Tanqueray, Patron, Moscato, Rio Uniti, Lambrusco Red, Asti Spumante, and some wine coolers. I could have my order delivered, but I try to walk everywhere as much as possible. I've never been into gyms, but I am trying to live at least 42 more years. Anyway, that particular day, my usual guy wasn't there, and the new guy couldn't find my order behind the counter where it was supposed to be. So I'm reading off my list to the new guy, this bald guy with a nice little goatee, and he says to me, "Baby, slow down." Now, I always been a fast talker. Folks back home was just used to it, I guess. Also, I couldn't remember the last time somebody called me baby. I eyed new guy up and down and took a deep breath and started over, slow and kind of sexy-like. New guy looked me up and down and didn't bother to hide the fact that he liked what he saw. In Miami, I'm back out, toes out, 7 days a week, including sports sandals for my early evening strolls on the beach. Sports sandals ain't nobody's idea of cute, but I keep a fresh pedicure. Always a minty green or a Tiffany blue or pale pink. That day in the liquor store, I wore a backless sundress with a floral and strawberry print and some sparkly flip-flops. I said to new guy, "Does your manager know you check out the lady customers like this?" But I said it with a smile. "He does," new guy said, extending his hand. "I'm Rick, the manager." And that's how I met Rick. I work at the store on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and he stays over at my place a few nights a week. We don't make it no more complicated than that. I had to leave my mama's house when I turned 18. It wasn't nothing personal. Me and both my siblings had to go after high school. Mama said military, college, or a job. Those were your options, but you had to make your own way. I didn't have the grades for a scholarship like my sister Katina, or the physical fitness for the military like my brother Kev, so I went to work. Or rather, I kept working. I've been working since I was 14 years old, as soon as I was old enough to get a work permit. I went to get it on my 14th birthday. That's how bad I wanted to work and make my own money and be less of a burden on my mama who was raising us by herself without any help. By the time I left home, I was working 2 jobs and pregnant with my first child, my son, Jamari. I always wanted to make things easier for my kids. In my house, turning 18 didn't come with an eviction notice. I left my mama's house after graduation and moved right into another woman's house, my mother-in-law's. Her son was one of those no-count private school boys whose father drank and whose mother was a good Christian lady who made a career out of keeping up appearances. She called me a fool when I wouldn't take the money for an abortion. But she bought me a dress, and she smiled real big in the photos of our shotgun wedding officiated by her pastor in the backyard of their McMansion. Later, she called me country for sleeping with my babies and breastfeeding them. I knew she was the kind of woman who never got drunk off the smell of her baby's milk breath or delighted in his chubby hands exploring her face in the quiet hours before daybreak, and I pitied her. Have you lost your goddamn mind? Misty called and left a voicemail. I listened to it as I stepped out of first class and walked to baggage claim at MIA. I listened to it before reading the dozens of text messages from my kids, imagining a time when Misty would be done cussing me out and might come to visit. I listened to her message on repeat, riding in the lift to the title company to close on my new house. I purchased it based on photos online with the help of my attorney. For real, Jaleesa? What the fuck? Where are you? Call me. I texted Misty instead. I'm fine, and I promise. I also replied to my kids on the way to the title company. Each one had texted, not called, mind you, thinking I'd left because of something they had done or not done. I responded to them in birth order. No, Jamari, I'm not mad that you brought my car back on E again. Matter of fact, that's your car now. I'm signing the title over to you. Yes, Jaredin, I was sick and tired of you keeping dishes full of rotting food in your bedroom, but that ain't why I left. Janiyah, you're right. I don't appreciate you having Damon in my house after I told you his thieving ass was not welcome. I know you can do much, much better, daughter mine, but you have to believe that. Josiah, I know you're sorry you failed the drug test for the internship I got set up for you. Like I tried to tell you, weed is not your friend when you're working for someone else. I forgive you, but you've got to forgive yourself, baby. I almost got back on a plane and went back. Almost. These days, kids don't run away from home anymore, unless they're really troubled. Every third show on TV is some detective drama or true crime program reminding them how crazy people are out in the streets. Plus, kids got it too good now, too comfortable at home to leave. So they stay their soft asses put. One time, in 1987, I had the nerve to fix my 8-year-old mouth to tell my mom I was running away. I don't even remember what set me off. Probably mama saying no to something I really wanted to do. She ran a tight ship and no was her favorite word. I just remember running into the bathroom and slamming the door like a white girl on a TV sitcom. Cardinal rules in Janice Bailey's house: don't be leaving her front door open, letting out all the air in the summertime. Cut off the lights when you leave the room. Don't slam her doors. Well, I slammed the door, and the house went dead silent. I sat on the side of the tub until Kev came home from football practice funky and in need of a shower. He threatened to kick the door in if I didn't open it. I tried to sprint from the bathroom into the bedroom I shared with Katina, but Mama caught me by the arm and pulled me onto the front porch where a small suitcase filled with my clothes was waiting for me. She didn't say a word, just left me on the porch all night with the suitcase. I never threatened to run away again. I left at daybreak on Mother's Day, in honor of my mama who died in her empty nest, having never flown very far to see more of the world. I wonder why she never flew away and stayed gone. She had the freedom to do it, no kids tying her down. Mama would never admit it, but I suspected she was afraid to fly on a plane, never learned to drive, and wanted no parts of anything she couldn't control. She didn't even like to eat out because hardly anyone else's cooking was up to her standards. Mama liked things familiar. Am I a good mother? Have I been the mother each of my kids needed me to be? I've wrestled with these questions since Josiah was born, and I've decided that I have been a good enough mother. Certainly not the best, but good enough. I tried. I really did. My middle babies, Jared and Janiyah, weren't planned, but they weren't oops babies either. I loved being a mother. My ex was actually a decent human being at the time, and it felt like we were playing house. We both worked, but his parents still let us live with them rent-free, and they paid our daycare bill. They made it too easy not to think about birth control. And I didn't pay my mother-in-law mind with her slick comments about me being a baby factory. When Jared was almost 18 months, I found out I was pregnant with Janiyah. We needed more space. My in-laws gave us the down payment for a house, the one I just left. Then Janiyah was born, and she was Daddy's little girl, until Daddy started coming home later and later and staying gone longer and longer until he wasn't there no more. One rare night that he was home, before he left for good, we made Josiah. My ex worked for his daddy and got paid mostly under the table, so his income on paper and the child support could be whatever he wanted it to be. So even with child support, I had to take a second part-time job. Most nights I was so tired I didn't even make it upstairs to my bed, just fell asleep right in the recliner in the living room. In the morning I'd wake up with a blanket over me. I will say this about my kids, they're sweet deep down, every one of them, even the ones who no longer speak to me. Don't you miss us? Josiah texted that to me late one night. I had been gone about a week. I didn't see the message until the next morning because most nights I'm asleep by 10. I miss the jokes that no one is in on but the five of us. The little sayings we've made up over the years, our family language. I miss Josiah still laughing all high-pitched the same way he did when he was 10. I miss Jamari laying his big old 24-year-old head in my lap for me to massage his scalp. I miss Janiyah singing off-key for her life to Whitney Houston. We all love Whitney Houston. And I miss Jared calling me Mamacita. I don't even remember when or why he started doing that, but I love it. What I don't miss is their assumption that someone will take care of the things they can't be bothered with, that someone will always pick up the pieces, clean up their messes, ride their emotional roller coasters, come up with a plan B after they fuck up a perfectly good plan A, and that I'm that someone. Maybe that's why Mama kicked Katina, Kev, and me out. Not so we could fly, but so we couldn't take her for granted anymore. Yes, I texted Josiah back. I miss y'all. It's December now. Back home, there's a winter storm. I'm sitting outside in the Miami sun eating Bahamian food for lunch. Just got off the phone with Misty. She started speaking to me again about a month after I left. She's coming to visit. We're gonna ring in the new year together. I might even let her meet Rick. I might even let Rick meet her, sorry. I call my kids once a month. I call, it's up to them to answer. Jared won't speak to me and he won't accept the monthly allowance I offer. Me and Jared have always run hot and cold. I don't know what it is. Mothers say they love their kids all the same, but how can we? The kids ain't the same, and who we are with them ain't the same. Jamari doesn't answer my calls either, but he accepts the monthly allowance and he stays in our old house, which I deeded over to Josiah. Janiyah has a house of her own. I'll be damned if I let her become her brother's maid. Her allowance covers the mortgage, her tuition, and other expenses, so she never have to put up with some man's bullshit to survive. We talk, but I can tell she's hurt. I'm still their mother, just from afar. The first time Josiah came to visit me, he was surprised at my little bungalow. He said he thought I'd buy a bigger house. I said, for what? Bigger means more to take care of, which means more money to spend taking care of it. I'm planning on living a long time and I need this money to last. And he asked if he could stay, move here and stay with me. No, I told him. Go. Anywhere, everywhere. You never like to sit still, don't start now. Since then, Josiah's done some traveling and started his own landscaping and snow removal company. Now he's 21 years old, managing a team of 12 employees. That old gray town keeps my son in business. During that last winter, I lived at home a few days after Josiah's 18th birthday. I claimed my winnings, the largest in the state's history. And for 5 months, I didn't say a word to anyone. May 8th, 2022. My dear babies, by the time you read this, I'll be headed to my new home. I won the lottery and I am tired. There are meals in the deep freezer and money in the envelopes with your names on the kitchen table. I will send more, and I will call you soon. If there's an emergency, call Misty or 911. Love forever, Mama. Jaredin called last night. He wants to come see me. I tell him any time is good except January and February. I don't tell him that's when I'm going to Africa to see some other colors. First stop, Senegal. They have a pink lake there. Thank you.
That was amazing. Hi, I'm Rose Solari. My husband, Jimmy Patterson, and I co-founded Alan Squire Publishing about 14 years ago. So actually our first books came out in 2010, but it was 14 years ago when we were concocting all this. So I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out because it's a wonderful event. And I want to thank Hannah, who came to us with the idea of, she's been on the staff with us for a couple of years now. She also edits our online literary magazine, the Alan Squire Bulletin, the XP Bulletin, which is amazing, and you should all submit to, all you writers out there. Hannah's been an extraordinary member of the team, and I'm so thrilled by what she did with this anthology, which was soup to nuts, her idea. I think all I did was proofread, really, and help with design and stuff, but that's part of my job. Anyway, I just want to thank you all for coming. Thank Hannah, thank the Writers Center, which is such a treasure and such a gift. And thank Elizabeth Hazen, one of our poets who's also manning the book sales table tonight. We've got copies of Already Gone up here. We've got copies of previous titles, and we are happy to run your credit cards through our little square machine. Thank you, everyone. This is Rose.